Hey guys, Brett Dixon here, Legion Defense. Just thought I'd throw together a quick introductory video in case you came across the page. Let you all know kind of what we're all about here at Legion Defense, and really, I guess what we're not. I think that's an important distinction, kind of brand identification, knowing what we feel we can provide to you, and should you be looking for something a little different, then trying to be upfront about that as well, to just set the expectations. So Legion Defense, we consider ourselves a kind of all-encompassing defense and firearms security consulting entity. Future state ambitions as we grow, potential security and defense contracting, management, consulting contracting, DoD subcontracting, kind of all of the above, right? For now though, starting off at a smaller scale, local, mostly a one-man band at this time. And what that looks like is, I would say, very personalized, tactical and defense and security consulting, and especially firearms coaching with a true focus on the fundamentals, which kind of brings me to what we're not. What we're not is another super high speed tactical, it's not anything wrong at all with these companies out here. It's just that there are so many of them that are running these, cutting edge tactics and next level weapons handling and Gucci gear, room clearing, and all that stuff. That's great. That has its place. But there are so many of those companies now, and so many of them are so well done, right, that I feel like the market has plenty of options. And for what it's worth, as a civilian, every now and then, I think that those companies, the right handful of them, are worth your time and money, right? To better yourself, especially if you have a career that requires that, right? I think they have their place for supplementing military training and especially law enforcement, federal agencies. If you're doing that stuff, you're getting in and out of buildings every day in a tactical manner, actually dealing with room clearing, handling a rifle and things like that, then yeah, of course, right? Invest in yourself, invest in your gear, invest in your training. However, from my personal experience, from my years in the Marine Corps, just as a firearms instructor, as a guy who loves to shoot, growing up with a police officer as a father, right? What I've always found is that the standard that you're taught and coached to in the Marine Corps, for example, especially if you're combat arms, especially if you're an infantryman, right, is extremely professional and extremely high. And I'm not talking about the super sexy, being able to long distance shoot, being able to shoot competitively even at a super high level. All those things have their place and they're great. I'm talking about the basic fundamentals of weapons handling, the basic fundamentals of firearms safety. These things I have found extremely lacking for an average civilian, right, who purchases, owns, and shoots a firearm. Guys, we've all had that feeling where you have gone to the range as a civilian, right? Whether it be an indoor range, you're next to 10 other people in a pistol bay, or an outdoor public range, a state range, when you've got every type of rifle under the sun out there. There are that handful of guys and gals who you're like, oh, this person is competent, they train, they're handling their weapon in a safe manner. I appreciate that. More often than not, though. More often than not. I mean, you go to these places and you can't be there for more than an hour, and at least once or twice have felt like, damn, I'm not quite sure I want to be shooting next to this person anymore. Has this person ever truly been taught how to handle a firearm? You watch them load a weapon and you think, what the hell was that? And that's just the brutal honesty of the situation from my perspective. I wager a guess that most folks who have been trained professionally to some manner, who have that professional rifleman level of weapons handling, professional law enforcement, you probably feel the same or have before. And so when I say most civilians just don't have the proper level of fundamental knowledge or training to responsibly handle and employ their firearm, if that gets you fired up or you felt yourself bristle at that, if your immediate reaction was, no, I can hit what I'm shooting, then I'd ask you to seriously take a deep breath, a tactical pause, as we would call it, in the line of business, and really self-evaluate and self-reflect, and myself included. I don't train as much as I even would like to. I don't do as much dry fire as I probably should, but my point is, we should all feel this way, even if you're in this line of work, but especially if you're not and you own a firearm and you picture yourself being a responsible, husband, wife, mother, father, brother, dad, mom, right? Citizen, member of your community, then you probably, and into no fault of your own really, you probably haven't been trained to the level that you should to be able to responsibly carry or employ that firearm should need be. Do you honestly know how to properly, have you been taught, have you been coached how to load and unload your firearm? Yeah, I know how to. I understand that. But again, going back to comparing the baseline to just, a Marine Corps rifleman who from day one in boot camp has to handle a rifle. All Marines, right, in boot camp. I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. We handled that rifle, and this is coming from a guy who's, right, been to boot camp, School of Infantry, other infantry schools, spent time in a scout sniper platoon, have since become, an infantry officer, the dark side. All right, to all my enlisted brothers and sisters out there, my heart is still there. But gone through infantry officer course, all the weapons handling stuff, got it. All the next level stuff. What people often overlook is from day one, regardless of your job, your MOS, in boot camp as a Marine, you handle the hell out of that rifle. Disassemble it, reassemble it, clean it, go through all the manual of arms, right? Literally 1,000 times before you ever even touch a live round. So by the time you get to that rifle range for a lot of guys and gals, it's the first time they've shot anything live in their entire life, especially a rifle, at Marine Corps boot camp. How can they then go qualify? Back in the day, old timer here, like I did qual with iron sights in boot camp. How can you take someone who's never held a rifle and in essentially 2 months, right, by the time you're on the rifle range in boot camp, have them qualifying, or in many cases shooting sharpshooter, even expert in boot camp, which means you're hitting essentially a human silhouette target for one of the old courses of fire at 500 yards with iron sights. To the average civilian, that sounds impossible, right? But how can you do that? It is all fundamentals. It's all fundamentals. Is that the only type of important measurable to determine if you're proficient with a firearm? No. That is one weapon system, one manner of firing, one philosophy of use and application. However, the point is, you can take someone who's never touched it and turn them in to a Marine Corps, rifle qualified expert with very limited and basic equipment. How? Truly through the fundamentals. And I would submit to you that 80% of that, at least 90% of that, is built before you even touch a live round. So what's the point, right? The point is that Legion Defense, all right, one of my primary motivations in starting this is that I want to be someone you can come to help fill that gap, which is a serious need that I view not only as a firearms proficiency detriment, but truly a safety and ultimately a responsibility deficit. You as a citizen, as a responsible human, American, again, family member, whatever, community member, if you take it upon yourself to buy and carry or possess a firearm in your home for home defense, and you have not actually thought of a tangible and achievable, like a realistic plan to employ that firearm, to use it should you need to within your home, to use it effectively and safely, right? To understand the ins and outs of it, the fundamentals of actually being able to disassemble your firearm, clean it properly so it functions the right way, reassemble it, handle it the right way, right? Know how to properly load, unload it, clear it, apply the fundamentals of marksmanship, right? A slow, steady, well-aimed shot versus shorter reaction, point and aim shots. These are all things that I just think the average person is extremely deficient in, and therefore doing a disservice to yourself, least of all, but more importantly, your family and the folks that you seek to protect, right? And ultimately, as a Second Amendment supporting, red-blooded American, to me, the onus is always on the individual. The responsibility is on the individual. Love our freedom in this country. Love our right to bear arms. Love the fact that if you live in a state where it, as it should be, is abiding by the constitutional simplicity to purchase and own a firearm, love that you can do that. However, the onus is on you then. You are making a choice, because we don't want, right, the government to interfere too much and tell you these are all the things you have to do to purchase a firearm, to own this, to own that. Here's all the restrictions, stipulations with you. But what that means is that there's an applied agreement there. Again, as a responsible member of your family, community, and American, that you're also going to take the responsibility upon yourself to train seriously and at least be able to competently and confidently handle and employ your firearms should need be. And that's what I seek to, that's what I seek to address here. Can get into all my background stuff later, but the qualifications and all that. But again, a lot of years in the Marine Corps infantry, and a lot of, whatever, experts, rifle, pistol, a handful of range high stuff, spent time in a scout sniper platoon, whatever. No one likes to sit here and talk about themselves and their certifications or awards or whatever. But I think suffice to say that that's, in terms of the firearms experience, I feel confident that I have enough of that to be able to pass on and have at least a well-informed perspective on what makes sense to help teach an average person. And on that note, I believe that something that we'll pride ourselves here at Legion Defense when it comes to our firearms consulting and coaching offerings is the ability to convey that knowledge and teach it. I have teaching experience. For any of those who knew me prior, a teacher for a long time was something that seemed like it was going to be in my future, and I loved to do while I did it. So I have a passion for teaching, I have a passion for coaching, and then more recently in my life, I have been a professional management consultant. So I think between the firearms and tactical background, some practical application with deployments and stuff like that, downrange, just living the infantry life, and then also the teaching, coaching, and professional management consulting. We can offer you personalized, meet you where you're at assessment of what you need, right? And how to get you there, whether that's something like figuring out your first firearms purchase, getting better with the firearm you have, or just I guess even considering your day-to-day, your home defense situation, your small business security situation, things like that. It doesn't have to be strictly surrounding firearms, but the purpose of this video, we dug a little deeper into that aspect of what we offer. We certainly offer broader security solutions and consulting than that, but again, I think if you work with me, you're going to get a very personalized, honest assessment of where you're at. We call that a current state assessment. Truly determine what your wants and needs are, what your goals are, what your current experience level is, and then get you a roadmap for where you want to go, right? Whether that be in your firearms inventory or your firearms proficiency, or your home defense, your day-to-day carry plan, your small business security setup, roadmap, what your ideal state is. Kind of start with that and work our way backwards to determine how we can get there together. So that's plenty for now. More to follow. I would expect some more links, maybe some social media, some Substack, website, all the typical small business stuff. But just want to say, if you stuck to the end, thank you. Please reach out and hope, if nothing else, that this first video sparked some honest curiosity and some I guess self-reflection and desire for improvement and responsibility as a member of your family, community, and this great country that we live in. Thanks all. Catch you next time.